The evening air outside was cool, a gentle breeze brushing against the windows of the old family home. Inside, the house was warm, filled with the smells of roasting chicken, fresh bread, and my mother's famous mashed potatoes. It was our family dinner, a rare tradition once every few months, where we all gathered trying to pretend that everything was normal. The dining room was a picture of carefully arranged chaos. Plates clattered softly, glasses chimed, and the hum of small talk filled the space. My dad sat at the head of the table, as always, his eyes scanning the room like a man surveying his kingdom. My mom smiled nervously, occasionally glancing at him, as if waiting for the inevitable storm to break. My younger sister was busy picking at her food, and I could see my brother sitting rigidly, his hands clenched around his fork, his jaw tight. He rarely spoke, but tonight, his silence was louder than any words. The conversation bounced from work to sports to the latest neighborhood gossip, light and superficial, as if to avoid anything too serious. Then, as if on cue, Dad shifted the tone with that familiar, chilling grin. He leaned forward, eyes twinkling with a cruel kind of amusement, and delivered the joke sharp, biting, and aimed straight at my brother. "Hey, maybe if you spent less time hiding behind that screen and more time in the real world, you'd actually be useful," Dad said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I mean, look at you, always so serious like you're the only one who ever matters." The room erupted in laughter. Not the gentle kind, but a loud, biting chorus of amusement that felt like it was aimed at tearing someone down rather than building anyone up. My mother chuckled nervously, my sister giggled, and even my cousins who had come along to the dinner joined in. They didn't know the full story, didn't see the wound the words left behind, except for my brother. His face didn't twitch, his lips didn't curl into a smile. He sat still as stone, his eyes fixed on the table. No laughter escaped his lips, only a deep, cold silence that made the air in the room feel suddenly suffocating. I felt a knot tighten in my chest. It wasn't just the joke. It was the way Dad said it, the way everyone laughed, the way my brother was left alone in the room, invisible and isolated. It was a betrayal not just of a joke at a dinner table, but a betrayal of trust, family, and love. For a moment, I wanted to shout, to tell everyone to stop, to make Dad see what he had done. But the words stuck in my throat. I watched my brother carefully, wondering if this was the first time Dad had made him the butt of his humor or just the worst. That night, as the laughter faded and the plates were cleared, I realized something bitter. In this family, some wounds were hidden behind jokes, and some silences were louder than any scream. The clatter of dishes being cleared away was oddly hollow, as if the house itself was holding its breath. The lingering laughter from Dad's joke had faded, but its echo still filled every corner of the room, settling like a shadow no one wanted to confront. Everyone else carried on as if the night was ordinary, but I could feel the tension thickening, suffocating the warmth that had been there just moments before. My brother was the first to leave the table. He didn't say a word, didn't excuse himself or ask for anything. His chair scraped back softly against the floor, but it sounded like a thunderclap to me. He walked down the hall with slow, measured steps and disappeared into his room, closing the door behind him with a finality that made the walls seem smaller. The room fell into a quiet I'd never known before, the kind of silence where people pretend nothing happened, but inside everything is broken. I wanted to follow him, to knock gently and ask if he was okay, but I froze. I was torn between respecting his space and the desperate urge to break through the invisible wall he'd built around himself. Instead, I stayed seated, staring down at my untouched plate. My appetite had vanished, replaced by a bitter knot in my stomach. Mom looked over at Dad, her smile gone, replaced by a flicker of worry. But Dad, as always, seemed unbothered. His face a mask of indifference, maybe even satisfaction. He sat back in his chair, swirling the last drops of wine in his glass, eyes darting around as if daring anyone to challenge him. "No one did, everything's fine," he said finally, with a voice too calm to be genuine, but it wasn't fine. Nothing about that night was fine. Later, I tried to talk to Mom quietly, hoping to find some understanding or even an apology. She sighed deeply, her eyes heavy with a sadness she refused to voice. "Your father didn't mean it like that," she said softly. "He's just joking. You know how he is." But I didn't know, because this wasn't a joke to my brother. It never had been, and I could see it in his eyes. There was a hurt so deep that no laughter could cover it. No joke could erase it. That silence was louder than any argument or fight. The rest of the evening was a fragile dance around that invisible wound. My sister tried to change the subject, asking about school and sports, but even her voice seemed brittle. My cousins exchanged uneasy glances, sensing the heaviness but not knowing how to address it. I felt helpless, stuck in a world where the family's laughter was a mask for pain and betrayal. I wondered how many times Dad had made my brother the target before. How many dinners had ended like this, with forced smiles and unspoken wounds. When I finally went to bed, the house was still. I heard the soft sound of my brother moving inside his room, a faint rustle of sheets, a quiet exhale that spoke of exhaustion. And somewhere in the dark, behind closed doors, I knew something inside him had cracked. That night, the silence taught me more than words ever could. Some jokes aren't just words. They're knives that cut deeper than anyone wants to admit. And sometimes, the people we love the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. The days after that dinner were heavy with unspoken feelings. My brother retreated further into himself, like a storm gathering strength beneath a calm surface. I watched him closely, how his eyes grew colder, how his smiles vanished entirely. It was as if the hurt had carved out a hollow space inside him, and he was carefully guarding it against the world. For a while, I thought he might disappear into that silence forever. But then, one quiet evening, when the house was dim and still, something shifted. I found him sitting alone in the living room, the soft glow of the table lamp casting long shadows across his face. He wasn't playing video games or scrolling on his phone like usual. Instead, he held a notebook, one of those simple line journals, and he was writing. Furiously, like his pen was trying to keep pace with the whirlwind inside his head. I hesitated, then spoke softly. "Hey, are you okay?" He looked up, eyes tired but steady. For a moment, I saw the vulnerability beneath the anger. Then he nodded slowly. "I will be," he said, voice low but determined. I sat beside him. "You don't have to go through this alone." He sighed, closing the notebook gently. "It's not about going through it, it's about what comes after, about making sure he knows what he did, about making this stop." His words struck me. Not just because they were about Dad, but because they were about something deeper. Something more than anger. It wasn't a plan born from bitterness or hate. It was about reclaiming his dignity, his voice, about showing the family that the laughter at the table could no longer drown out the truth. He shared his idea carefully, like it was a fragile seed he wasn't sure would grow. "I'm not going to fight fire with fire," he said. "I want it to be something he can't ignore, something honest and undeniable." We talked late into the night. He wanted to confront Dad not with anger or accusations, but with the strength of his own truth. He wanted to write a letter, one that the whole family could read. A letter that told the story Dad tried to hide behind his jokes. A letter that showed how those words cut deeper than anyone wanted to admit. I offered to help, and together we crafted something powerful. A reflection of years of silence, of hurt, of hope for something better. But there was more. He wasn't going to stop at words. He planned to change himself, to grow stronger, to prove that Dad's hurtful jokes didn't define him. He would find his own path, one where he wasn't the punchline anymore. That was the real revenge, the quiet, steady rise from pain to power. A sweet revenge that didn't destroy but healed, that didn't break the family but challenged it to change. For the first time since that awful dinner, I saw a spark of something fierce and beautiful in my brother's eyes. Not hatred, not bitterness, but strength. The next family dinner came faster than expected. It had been 2 months since that night, long enough for everyone else to forget, or pretend to, but not him, not us. The air felt different as we walked into the dining room. Heavy, expectant, the same polished plates were set out, the same laughter began to bubble as people arrived, and my father held his place at the head of the table like nothing had ever happened. But this time, my brother didn't shrink. He walked in with calm confidence, his back straight, dressed sharply, his eyes clear. No headphones, no phone in hand, just him present, tall and still. No one knew what was coming, not even Mom. The meal began like it always did, with small talk, nervous jokes, the clink of cutlery. Dad laughed easily, as if he'd already reclaimed control of the room. But then, as the plates were cleared and the second round of wine was poured, my brother stood up quietly. The room went still. He reached into his coat pocket and unfolded a sheet of paper. I recognized it immediately, the letter we'd worked on. But he'd made changes. This version was all him. "I want to say something before dessert," he began, his voice steady but strong. And I'd appreciate it if no one interrupted. Eyes darted around the table. Someone chuckled awkwardly, trying to diffuse the tension, but it died quickly when they saw his face. He read the letter aloud. His voice didn't shake. Each word landed heavy and deliberate, carving through the silence like a blade. "You made a joke at my expense, Dad. Everyone laughed, everyone but me, and maybe you thought it was harmless, just another laugh to share around the table, but it wasn't harmless. It was the kind of joke that reminded me I've never truly been safe here. Not from ridicule, not from being small in your eyes. You've spent years making me feel like I was never enough, never loud enough, strong enough, successful enough, man enough. You disguised it as humor. But what you really did was tell me who I wasn't, over and over again, until I started believing you. And I'm done believing you." The silence was absolute. My mother's eyes filled with tears. My aunt looked down at her hands. No one could look at Dad, and for once, even he had nothing to say. But my brother wasn't done. "This isn't just about a joke. It's about respect, and it's about me deciding that I no longer want to be part of a family where people laugh at pain instead of facing it. I'm not leaving. I'm changing, and I'm inviting you all to change with me." He folded the paper quietly and sat down. Not a single person clapped. No one said that was brave, but it didn't matter, because the silence this time, it wasn't empty. It was stunned, reflective, real. Even Dad, the king of the table, was silent. His expression was unreadable, caught somewhere between shame and something he couldn't yet name. Later, after most had left, Dad stayed behind in the kitchen. I walked in to find him just standing there, hands in his pockets, staring out the window. "He's not wrong," he said quietly. "I thought I was a helping somehow, keeping him tough, making him stronger." I didn't reply. There was nothing I could say that my brother hadn't already said better. He looked at me then. For the first time in a long time, his eyes weren't hard. "Do you think I can fix it?" I said, "He's giving you the chance." In the weeks that followed, something shifted. Slowly, imperfectly. Dad didn't magically become soft and kind overnight, but he started listening more. He stopped making jokes at anyone's expense. He even apologized to my brother, directly and privately. And my brother, he flourished. He started mentoring kids online, teaching coding, sharing his story. His voice grew stronger. He wasn't trying to prove himself anymore. He simply was himself, and that was more than enough. His revenge wasn't dramatic. There were no angry fights, no family explosions, no screaming matches. His revenge was standing tall, telling the truth, and refusing to carry the shame that wasn't his to begin with. That, I realized, was the sweetest revenge of all.